Hey everyone, Tony D. Welcome to the Piney podcast. Happy Memorial Day. America, I hope the start of your summer started well. I gotta say, Phil Murphy's, well, you know, we can't get any response from the virus or state workers on a holiday, of course. This is such a dire emergency where you have to keep your business closed and stay home. It's such a dire emergency. But, you know, people still get days off. That's how dire an emergency is. It's so dire that, you know, emergencies, you know, get the weekends off. We're under 1,000 positive cases. We're under 3,000 hospitalizations statewide. New statistic, 66% of the people who ended up in the hospital over the beer virus had stayed home. The data is in. Staying home, probably past a certain point, has made the infections in certain areas of the country worse. Because the Democrats have decided to take the opposite policy of Trump by not opening things, by keeping people home longer, almost across the board, the infection rates are higher in those states. I don't know what else to tell you. That's coming from the New York Times. Tim Pool was just reporting on it. So their policies now there's no reason to pursue them. If they were trying to pursue a policy of helping people, I think they would have already opened things up. The data was clear when, at the president's press conference, one of the scientists from, I believe he was from the DOD, said, "We've done tests in the sun above mid-70s, the virus dies within a matter of seconds." The summer is here. That is really going to cut down on the infection, on top of the fact that people are aware and they're mitigating. No one wants to get this. People are keeping distance. They're not always wearing face masks, but they're all trying to keep a distance. And I would say that elderly people should continue to avoid large crowds because they are more vulnerable to this. Even if there's only a tiny chance they can get it, it's so deadly to them, they should really wait until there's a vaccine next year or the year after. But for people 50 and under, the chances of serious complications, unless you have an underlying medical condition, is so remote. It's not feasible anymore to keep those people home. And as you go up the food chain to even people who haven't retired in their 50s or 60s, their chances are very, very remote. If you get this virus, you will very, 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 very likely survive and not even go to the hospital. The vast majority of cases, we already know that. It's the nursing homes and people with underlying medical conditions that have to be protected for a little while longer. There is only one reason that I can see that these Democratic states continue to force the lockdown. And it is because they have decided that as a strategy, the Democratic Party must hurt the economy as much as possible. And this is their avenue to do that. To get at Trump, they have to hurt the economy, or Trump has to say uncle and feed them tons of money to keep the lockdown from impacting anything. This is your government. This isn't just Democrats. Right now it's Democrats. but this is people in power. Now, Pineys, we live in New Jersey. Phil Murphy just got wind of a protest in Point Pleasant. His response was, well, I support those people's right to protest, but that's not going to move me. We have to move Phil. The only way to do that is to turn the media against him. And the way to do that is to keep protesting, keep writing the media, keep writing Phil, and put the pressure on him. We have to let him know that he is out of office if he doesn't open things up soon. That is the only thing he understands. Power. That is the only thing left-leaning Democrats understand. Power. If you remove his power or threaten to, he'll budge. Until then, he'll keep doubling down because he knows in order to keep his position of power, he has to keep pushing you. The Hunterdon County Board of Freeholders has written a polite letter to Governor Murphy asking if they could have appointment-only retail. Bad move, because he is likely to say no unless he's pressured. And I understand probably most, if not all of you, are Democrats, so you're trying not to step on the toes of your governor. But understand, he doesn't care about you. He only cares about his political career and that it's going up. And because the Democrats are in such rough shape, he's spending his time going on CNN and national news. Why is he doing that? What does that have to do with New Jersey? Well, not much, except, you know, he could go on Action News or any of the TV stations down here. He doesn't have to go on the national news to tell people what's happening in New Jersey, does he? Unless he's working on his national image. Because Cuomo is getting pilloried in New York. He is trying to blame the president. Oh, they don't blame the president. They blame him and de Blasio for this mess, this over-response. It's perfectly clear now. The field hospitals, the battleship, or no, aircraft carrier was it? They didn't really need them. It was an over-response. Up to a point, that's fine. We didn't know what we were dealing with. That time has passed. That ship has sailed. Now it's an overreaction. Now it's political. And Phil Murphy and Cuomo and all these Democrats, they're going down. But rather than turn the boat around, they're going to try to say, well, if we keep doubling down and just get through this, Biden will be elected and Biden will bail us out because we're good little Democrats. He ain't going to give money to those nasty old Republican states. Oh, but he'll give money to me because I wrecked my economy just to help him get elected. I think that's the strategy. That strategy is likely to wipe out the Democrats. So even if you believe in Biden, even if you believe in the Democratic Party, that, I think, is where your party's headed. They're willing to make a suicide pact, all or nothing, because they don't actually believe people will turn against them. This is happening again and again and again with the Democrats. They didn't believe black voters would vote Republican. And then Donald Trump said, well, why don't you vote for me? What if you have to lose? And he delivered. He delivered on jobs. And now he has a fan base amongst the black community, Latino community as well, because of jobs. The Democrats still think they're entitled to the vote of the black community. They see them as a monolith rather than a group of individuals. That is going to destroy them. Because the more they do it, the more things like Biden saying, you ain't black if you got to think about voting for me or Trump, the more people will go, F you. And I don't blame them. I was a Democrat for many years. I am appalled by what the party has become. And before I said, well, they've kind of turned into Republican light. And I didn't like that either because they followed rather than led. Now they're leading in disaster. People are getting sick and losing their businesses over this. And they don't care because for them, here's the two worst case scenarios. The worst case scenario is they wreck the economy, Biden gets back in, and Biden writes him a big check. The other scenario, the more likely scenario, is they wreck the economy and they lose anyway, and well, if Trump gets in, that means I was probably out anyway. And they go their merry way because all the governors are rich political a-holes, well-connected people who will go back to their law practices or whatever they did before all this started. Send them a message now. Don't wait. Because Phil and a lot of these guys are dragging their feet all the way into November. They dragged their feet all through the summer. Can you imagine a summer of this? A summer of people getting arrested for opening their businesses while prisoners were let out because they were afraid of the virus spreading around in the prisons, which they can't even keep the drugs out. I don't know how they expected to keep the virus out. In New York, the criminals they let out were so bad, they have to spend a lot of resources rounding them back up and throwing them back into jail. This is a nightmare. It's time. I don't know what state you live in. I don't know if you even live in the United States. I know a lot of my fans are out of the country, excuse me. But if you live in the United States, it's time to write. That's the least you can do right now is write. I'm not suggesting you have to go to Point Pleasant and join the protest, although you could, or join a protest wherever. But if Phil doesn't feel the pressure, he'll never budge. He's going to keep this on as long as he can because that, in my view, is the strategy. It makes total sense and it's strictly political. I don't know what else to do other than keep writing Phil. Sign the petition to recall him. It's a long shot at best, but at least if the petition got enough signatures that it had to be recognized, someone in the media could do an article on it. That would hurt Phil. That would hurt his image. Even if he got through all this and ran for re-election, that could come up in the debate, right? The Republican challenger could say, well, wasn't there a recall petition with 500,000 signatures on it, Mr. Murphy, Governor Murphy? I think he's going to have a lot of ammo anyway, the way this is going. And, you know, let's be real. The Republicans in the state aren't much better. But the Democrats have signed a very dark pact, in my view. They have chosen politics over sense. And they have to be punished appropriately. And it's appropriate for them to be kicked out of office for a long time. I think the UK election is going to repeat itself here. That they are going to lose seats they never thought. Never thought they were going to lose. People are infuriated. And if I, God forbid, if I had a relative who had died of this virus and now this science comes out saying that staying inside made it worse, who are those people going to blame if they ever hear the science? It's another thing. Man, the media is in the pocket for these people. Do not trust it now. I barely trust the media I read. You know, I don't know how big that protest was in Point Pleasant. According to the article I read, it was small, and they were Trump supporters. I don't even know if the protest even actually happened, quite frankly. That's how little trust I put in the article and the media. Unless they had actual footage. And even then, I'd have to go, maybe that's the footage from that protest, or maybe it's just random footage that they used for a visual. If you haven't done at least an email at this point, I mean, I guess you just don't care. We have to do something. We have to open this state. It's time.